PC before you start the router, okay? So now we got all of that back up, right? Everything is back up. What am I going to tell the customer to do now?
Try to access the internet.
Try to access the internet. Okay, so the customer still getting page cannot be displayed.
Hold on, you said tell the customer to turn the router on for the PC? It's not turn the PC on for the router?
No, ma'am.
Be-
It's Mr. PC. Modem first, then the router, then the PC.
I heard that the PC really doesn't matter, it may take it may take longer to power up.
How long was that call yesterday? It certainly won't take that long for the PC to power up. That, it doesn't matter, because if you take shortcuts, you end up having a long call. Modem, router, PC. You don't always have to restart the PC, but what if you go through this and you still can't get the page? The next thing you're gonna do is tell a customer to restart the computer anyway. Get this out of the way. This is 101. Mr. PC is basic. Anytime there's any problem, you gotta do that. Restart the modem, restart the router, restart the PC. Now, the router, let me take a moment and say, we're gonna do this, really if the router belongs to Comcast. If there's a router on the account, we'll do this in this order. But if the customer is using a router and it doesn't belong to us, when they shut everything down, they're gonna have to take the router out of the equation. The router's gonna have to come out, because it's not our equipment. So we wanna eliminate, that right off the top, right? And have the customer hardwire directly into the laptop from the modem, okay? So PC comes back up, still can't get page. What's the next thing I'm gonna ask the customer to do?
Calculator.
Now there's a couple of things that we can do at this point. Now you gotta use your judgment, right? The calculator trick doesn't always work if there's a problem with the customer's computer, like we found out yesterday. But it's a good way, because now at this point, what I'm trying to show the customer is really that it's probably not our problem. And I just need to prove that to the customer. Because I'm seeing the modem is online. Customers see all the lights on the lights on the modem, the lights on the router are all good. It's probably not an issue with the signal going to it's definitely not an issue with the signal going to the house. The issue is on the customer's computer. So now I'm really trying to prove it to the customer. So the calculator trick, we open up the calculator and go to jump to URL and see if the customer can access a web page from there, right? If they can, that's really where your troubleshooting can stop. And now you're just trying to complete your call and educate the customer. Because Google coming up in the calculator shows the customer that they have access to the internet. You can even ask them to pull up 2 web pages, Google, CNN, just to show them that they have a connection to the internet. And that's basically where our responsibility ends. But, I'm sorry. But, the calculator is a trick, right? It's not a magic trick. Another way to show the customer that they have an connection to the internet is doing what?
IP key.
Right. So that's really the next step we want to do. We want to see what IP address the customer's pulling, right? What if the calculator trick doesn't work? Then we want to go to the DOS prompt and see what IP address the customer's pulling. Because hopefully the customer did all of this right, right? But now we want to go to the DOS prompt. So I'm not going to the DOS prompt until I did all of this, right? This 9 out of 10 times is going to fix the customer's issue, but not all the time. So now I go to the DOS prompt. And what's the first command I give the customer?
IP config.
IP config. I want to see what IP address they're pulling, right? They could still be pulling a 192 even after they've removed the router, right? Or they could be pulling a 169. That's a bigger problem. That's a bigger problem. Let's say they're pulling a valid Comcast IP address. And what's a valid Comcast IP address?
10399.
10 through 99, right?
Yeah.
Customer's pulling a valid IP address. What's my next step?
Pay.
Ping.
You wanna try to pay what it is?
Antoine didn't agree with that. I saw his reaction. He said, "What? What's the next step?"
You could release it and renew that.
That could be that IP address could be stuck. It may not necessarily be the right, a current IP address, right? So I always want to release and renew my IP address, right? Steve, that makes sense?
Yeah.
So I release, tell the customer to type in ipconfig space / release, and then what should I see? What should I ask the customer? What should I ask the customer?
What's the IP address?
Because it says IP address what?
Why
It should say 0.0.0. Don't tell the customer what they're gonna see. Ask them what do they see. So what do you see as the IP address now? It's all zeros. Okay, great. That means it worked. ipconfig space / renew. Now tell me what the IP address. It probably will be the same thing that it was in the beginning, right? So again, that's telling the customer, that's proving to you that your computer is now communicating with our modem because it's issued your computer a Comcast IP address. So that's more proof that those two devices are talking to each other, right? Now I want to ping, right? Just again, to show the customer that there is two-way communication established on the internet. So it's ping space www.yahoo.com. And then ask the customer again, what do you see? And that's exactly the steps I went through with the customer last night. Once I got him to do this, we went straight to the DOS prompt because Rika had gone through everything else with it. So I knew that stuff wasn't working. So we went straight to the DOS prompt. And this guy didn't really sound like he was very computer literate. And actually he told me, he said, I don't know nothing about computers. But just by him seeing the DOS prompt, by me educating him on the IP address, letting him see the IP address, letting him see it disappear, letting him see it come back, and then explaining what the ping command was doing, and I had him read to me what the response was. So anybody with a little bit of common sense, it says, response in milliseconds. So I told him, I said, what you did was you sent a request to a website, and the website answered you back. So that's proof that there is two-way communication established between your computer and Yahoo. So you have a connection to the internet. So at this point, the issue is your browser. It's nothing wrong with the connection between the internet and, between Comcast and your computer and the internet. There's no problem. But you cannot see a web page from the browser that you're trying to access it from. And that's where the issue is, and that's not something that Comcast can troubleshoot. Okay? So we listen to the customer, we observe, the tools that we have to get information. We gathered information, we told the customer what we were doing, and then we gave the customer a complete diagnosis of the issue. Make sense?
Yes.
Question? Okay.
What do you do in a case where the customer has a laptop in their, well, I guess it doesn't matter, you can do it both ways. I was gonna say if they're doing it wirelessly, and they have a router that's not ours, how would we troubleshoot? But I guess that would just make it still hard to connect the laptop.
Right. You don't really want to troubleshoot a wireless connection because again, and even when it's our router, it's a courtesy to do it that way. But that could very well be the problem. The router could be the problem. You want to eliminate that and hardwire because again, I'm just trying to prove to the customer that what's coming out your wall and going into this modem and going from this modem into your computer is working. That's all I want to prove. Excuse me. I'm not trying to prove, the man went to the moon. I'm not trying to prove none of that. All I need to prove to you is that the connection that we're sending you can get you to the internet on your computer. And that's basic. Okay? Anything over that is in reference to connectivity is above and beyond what's required of us.